And we are live.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Lano, and I'm the County Administrator here for Tompkins County. I want to thank you again. Some of you are joining us again for another Community Voices Forum. This is our 5th Community Voices Forum. We also have another one tomorrow morning, I believe, around 10 o'clock in the morning. And you're more than welcome to participate again tomorrow. And these Community Voices Forums are about receiving public input and feedback surrounding our Reimagining Public Safety Initiative. This is a collaborative initiative with the Tompkins County and the City of Ithaca, and we appreciate everyone's feedback. I want to go over just how the forum works in a second, but before I do so, I just want to acknowledge that this afternoon and this morning, there was a publicly released story today in our local media regarding some misconduct by a local police officer with the Ithaca Police Department. I know many of you have signed up today to speak about that incident, and I want to encourage you to do so. I also want you and encourage you all to share your perspectives, your thoughts about the larger picture of how you can contribute and how we can help reimagine public safety in our community. This is an important issue for us. It's an important issue from an equity perspective that we want to ensure we're understanding the public's point of view and understand folks that have had different experiences in our community so we can assist in contributing and making the right decisions and looking forward to change in the future. So I welcome your feedback on the bigger picture of public safety in our community, and I also welcome the feedback from the incident that may have impacted you from today. That said, moving forward with this evening, if you want to sign up to say something, I encourage you to use the raise your hand feature on the Zoom feature itself, and keep your hand raised. Dominic Racchio, our communications director, will take your names down. He will post them on the clock that he'll put on the screen in a second, and the name of the individual to be speaking will be up there, but also the next person in the queue will be also identified so that we know who's to come next. So please, if you want to speak at any point in time, use the raise your hand feature, keep it up, and Dominic will be able to take your name down so he can put it in the queue. He will ultimately lower your hand when it's your time to speak. With that said, Dominic, I'm going to turn it over to you. Again, I want to thank you all for participating and look forward to hearing what you have to say this evening.
Great. Thank you, Jason. I'll start sharing my screen. We've had a few folks raise their hand. And as soon as, all right, I believe you can see my screen there, and we're going to begin this evening with Liza.
Hi, my name is Lisa Cobb. I'm a member of Tompkins County showing up for racial justice. I have a few quotes from a book that I really recommend that the people who literally have the hands of Black and brown, the lives of Black and brown bodies in their hands, read this book and understand what policing is and what it is not. And I will put the reference to the book in the chat. Okay. More than anything, however, what we really need is to rethink the role of police in society. The origins and function of the police are intimately tied to the management of inequalities of race and class. The suppression of workers and the tight surveillance and micromanagement of Black and brown lives have always been at the center of policing. Any police reform strategy that does not address this reality is doomed to fail. We must stop looking to procedural reforms and critically evaluate the substantive outcomes of policing. We must constantly reevaluate what the police are asked to do and what impact policing has on the lives of the policed. A kinder, gentler, and more diverse war on the poor is still a war on the poor. And the other part is more than, really with that, yep. Well, I lost it. I'm going to put the information on the end of policing in the chat. Thank you for giving me time to speak.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And we'll make sure we share that link with folks as well. Next up, we have Karen.
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I listened with interest to the presentation by Attorney General Milgram about the progress they made in Camden, New Jersey, and was inspired by it. She said they re-envisioned police as community guardians instead of as warriors. And they started sending police out with specific goals of helping people. This is a very different approach than what we've seen in recent years at Ithaca Police Department, which has had a warrior mentality. An example of this is the overutilization of the SWAT vehicle to serve warrants in the middle of the night with no-knock warrants. It's completely unnecessary, and that's not being a guardian. So I like that framework for us to look at this a little bit more. She also talked about the importance of data and the intersectionality of public safety and health and schooling, how it all connects to the underlying root causes for crime. And I think it's really important that we actually define, first of all, what we mean by public safety, because it's more than just the absence of crime. And it does, as other speakers have said, have to do with all kinds of things relating to equity and poverty. But once we define those things, I think we need to set some really specific goals. The Ithaca City School District has had an equity report card for many years on their website as a way to be accountable. And this idea could be expanded to public safety as well. There could be a yearly report card. I guess my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Next, we have Genevieve.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't think any of us are surprised today. It's really, I mean, it's disappointing to see how police officers brag about abusing people when they think that the cameras aren't on, but we're not surprised. If anything, it's at least a relief that they got caught this time. What I want to highlight is that this is not just one officer. It's not just Kevin Slattery. On the scene of the brutalization of Javon, there was Kevin, there was Michaela, there was Eric, like the president of the union. None of them said anything. In the video that got released of Kevin bragging about brutalizing that man, you can hear at the end of that video that he talks with his partner about how they should have forcefully swabbed the man's mouth instead of letting him do it himself as punishment for him asking questions about the process. And that's when they, by the way, reached for the camera and said, oh God, we got to turn this off. So who knows what the fuck they said after that camera went off. But anyway, IPD is a broken police department that's a part of a broken institution. 3 years ago or so, the Center for Government Research did a research project on ways that the city could cut its budget on policing. They released a lot of options. One of those options was dissolving the Ithaca Police Department, reducing the spending on policing by 53% and using the rest to make a contribution to the Tompkins County Sheriff's Department. This is basically what Camden did, and that went very badly and caused a lot of problems. There was an increase of use of force on Black people in that area. There was an increase in surveillance. What we can do differently, if we get rid of the Ithaca Police Department and we save about $6 million, is we can take that money and use it to build alternatives and build a next chapter to the rocky start that Camden tried to make in abolishing the police.
Great. Thank you, Genevieve. Next, we have Alejandra.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome, great. Hi, I'm Alejandra. I have been working with an anti-racism coalition that put together demands to defund the police over the summer. And we have put together some more information recently that there's a few of us here and some of us will drop in the chat. I want to talk about how reimagining public safety is just a way to distract from the popular community demand to defund the police, and that it's really just rebranding and nothing else. Real change needs to be centered in restorative justice and be rooted in communities. Any reforms that increase police presence, scope, surveillance, budgets are missing the point. So, you'll find this information in what we've compiled as a coalition, but it's really important to look at how this is not a bad cop, good cop situation, and policing itself is the problem. So if you look at this example of Kevin Slattery that came out today, like Genevieve talked about already, we're looking at like 3 or more cops. Also imagine them bringing in this suspect they beat up, and everyone on duty that night, everyone in the station, everyone at the, seeing this happen. This is not just individuals, it's a whole system that is rotten. So it's not about we can, fire Kevin Slattery or suspend him on paid leave, give him a paid vacation, and then everything is okay. It's about looking at what our community really needs, which is not policing. On another note, I just want to say that in this article that came out, Svante Myrick's statement talking about how he thinks that IPD is generally a good system that needs reforming shows that he is solidly on the side of police and not the people. This is a giant disappointment. That is me being polite to say that. Svante, this is a giant disappointment. We need to refund our communities, and we need to look at the fact that policing is a problem that cannot be reformed. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandra. Next, we have Ari.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I too was very much not shocked to see that IPD is bragging about brutalizing Black people. And I want to make sure we keep leading into this idea that it's not one bad police officer and that every single police officer is complicit. This needed to be investigated to come out. There were no quote unquote good cops that were coming out against him saying, hey, I saw some stuff go down that was really messed up. Every single officer, the day they pepper sprayed children and brutalized people, dropped whatever they were doing to go activate their military forces and stay so staunchly on the side of the state repression. There's no good to be salvaged from this situation. There's no good to be salvaged from this administration. Eric Doan's the head of the Ithaca Police Benevolent Association. Deputy Chief Monticello and Deputy Chief John Jolie are so openly racist and transphobic and just assholes to the community. They're a shit stain on our fucking society. And it's embarrassing that we had to get to the point where this hard proof of officers literally bragging, literally so happy that they got to kick someone's ass. They threw him down the goddamn stairs and they were happy about it. They're jerking off on the fucking job. And Matt Cohen's pervert ass was present when they arrested Messiah White Saunders. So were two deputy chiefs of police. These aren't mistakes. These aren't slip-ups. These aren't tiny blemishes on an otherwise good organization. All cops are bastards. They signed the papers, they got their gun, they got their badge, and then they go out and they brutalize Black and brown people and then brag about it and then alter evidence. And you guys aren't going to do anything about it because you still haven't fired Jamie Williamson. You still haven't fired Benjamin Buck, and they had their knees on Rose and Kaji's necks last fucking year. Shape the fuck up.
Thank you, Ari. I'd just like to remind folks that we're discouraging the use of profanity in these forums. And next up is Mona. Let's see here. All right, Mona, you're up.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you? Yes? Okay.
Yep.
So I'm with the Anti-Racist Coalition as well, and I'm actually shaking because of hearing what happened today that you've referred to. And so I hope in light of that, you'll pay more attention to what we have to say. We oppose any measures that increase the presence, scope, surveillance, and budget of the police. And this includes the Camden model, which former Attorney General of New Jersey Ann Milgram promoted on October 29th at one of these forums. And I encourage people who were impressed positively with it to find out more about it. Then you can contact me, or you can read Pacifying the Homeland by Brendan McQuaid, or read his article on Jacobin. This Camden model would never, ever, ever prevent what happened today and what has happened before and will happen again. We refuse to be fooled or confused by the slick, deceptive rebranding of strategies and tactics that merely continue to promote what is commonly called public safety, and which you are trying to reimagine, but which in reality constitute the politics of security. The politics of security makes possible and perpetuates the oppression, the pressing down on people made insecure in housing, employment, healthcare, transportation, education, and more by the very inhumane economic system that police were created to protect and maintain, and which is their function today, keeping vulnerable, insecure people from rising up, managing them. That is the job of the police. Instead of just using words like guardians and builders of the community instead of warriors, why not just demilitarize them as just a first step right now? I thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Angela. Angela, you're up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. I hear a lot of voices today speaking from the same mindset, so I'm going to turn the page and speak from a different viewpoint. I don't believe defunding our police departments at this particular point, given the climate in society, in our country, and our community, is a good idea. I speak from experience of attempting to speak a different viewpoint in this community and exercise my First Amendment rights, and having them completely and utterly stomped on, literally. I don't fear the police intervening. I mean, at this point, after the last few months, I actually fear them not intervening. I think everyone's familiar with what happened down in front of the GOP office mid-October. The fact that peaceful citizens came out to exercise our First Amendment rights of speech and assembly, and we're not allowed to do that, had not only not allowed to do that, but were forcibly intimidated and suppressed, and had the police show up and not do anything. As a citizen of this country and in this county, I was shocked and disgusted, and honestly, and that's not the only issue. Violence is on the rise in Tompkins County, in Ithaca. As a mother, as someone that has to work in the city of Ithaca, send her kids to school in the city of Ithaca, and participate as a community member in Tompkins County, I want that public safety in place.
Great, thank you, Angela. Next is Noah. Noah, you're up.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Alrighty. My name is Noah. I grew up here in the city of Ithaca, and I'm a graduate of Ithaca City School District. Speaking as a young white woman, I fully support every call to defund the police and protect the Black and brown citizens of Tompkins County and of Ithaca, whose lives and livelihoods are in jeopardy under the IPD every day. We need to take away every access to violence in every capacity that IPD has, including first step of disarming and demilitarizing all IPD officers. We need to completely disarm the SWAT vehicle and turn it into something that will protect the community, such as a mobile COVID testing center or a mobile Narcan training administration center. There are so many issues in our town, our county, our city that jeopardize people's safety that need to be addressed so urgently. We have food insecurity. We need more mental health services, better access to therapy. The fact that we have one person, Tammy Baker, working downtown trying to administer help to our houseless community while IPD is fully funded and has so many officers running around chasing people, abusing people physically and verbally, is absolutely not okay. And we need to direct more funds to those who are actually protecting our community members, all the way up to systemic change, addressing gentrification, addressing the insecurity of food and water, and all social services that is inequitable in our community. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your input, Noah. Next, we have Thomas.
Thank you for the unmute button. Hello, I've spoken at a meeting in the past, and I've thought about this a lot as well, and I don't know who I agree with on this chat. I can't say I agree with, oh, never mind. My point is that I've been one of the people that's marched out on the street. I've also talked to people who have not marched in the street, and surprisingly enough, we have me and the people who haven't marched in the street have got a lot in common. We both believe that there does need to be some significant defunding of the police and refunding of other initiatives. Personally, I fail to see how that's a bad idea, since police are used as the solution for so many problems right now that I honestly can imagine anyone being put into that job being burned out at the very least and becoming monsters at the very worst. Just to take Mr. Slattery, for an example, this is a person who grew up in Ithaca, downtown, worked at GIEC, went to IHS, volunteered and participated, and he's still, and yet, look where he is now. And I feel like that is evidence that the system needs to change. And from the people I've talked to, it's not just people out protesting on the street that want to see the system change. We've got people who haven't marched in the street for the last 20 years who want to see the system change. We've got people who want to see the system change for the better of cops because they believe cops are too put upon. And the person in question who I've talked to who believes cops are too put upon is a coworker who's on the opposite side of my political spectrum. And if we agree that something needs to be changed in the policing here, then why isn't it changing? Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Next, we have Margaret.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. I will speak directly to Angela Nash first. I find it extremely hard to get upset about people shouting at one another when police are literally murdering Black and brown people all over this country, and that includes Ithaca. Remember Sean Greenwood, remember Keith Shumway, and remember all the other abuses that we've seen in the past few years and today. I am also with the Anti-Racist Coalition of Tompkins County. As Mona mentioned, we believe that the Camden model in particular, which Karen mentioned earlier, is a deceptive rebranding of pretty much the same police system that we already have. We are not fooled by this. It includes mass surveillance, invasive monitoring, routine violations of privacy, dignity, and human rights. And we think all of that is completely inappropriate. We don't need warriors, but we also don't need guardians. The term guardians, personally, I find insulting to the populace. It makes people sound like children. We need to be able to empower people to be responsible for their own safety in a community that works together. And I'll just end on the point of public safety. public safety means adequately meeting the human needs of all members of the community. That is not actually the job of police. Police should be the last thing funded toward the goal of public safety. We need to fund schools, health centers, education. We need to improve income inequality situation and do all sorts of other things toward public safety first.
Thank you, Margaret. Next, we have Monique. Monique, are you there? You should be able to unmute from your device.
Oh, I'm Monique.
Yeah, there are multiple people signed up with Monique. I can change your name in here if you'd like. Just state your name.
No, it's all good. I'll be a mystery. I just really want to address, first of all, what that person, Jason Molino, whoever they are, said in the beginning about how we need to focus on larger issues and there are bigger things to think about. And I just want to state how completely and utterly full of bullshit that is. I know you care about respectability politics and me speaking without profanity, but there's nothing other than profanity to describe just how disgusting making a statement like that is, especially with the incredible amount of violence that Black people and other people of color face every day under white supremacy. And for a white man to sit in his privilege and speak to people of color, especially, and claim that there are bigger issues and bigger fish to fry and bigger things to focus on than the safety of Black and brown people is so filled with white supremacy and so stinking with privilege. I don't even have the words other than fuck that. So moving on to more important things. If I was supposed to reimagine public safety, the first thing I need to reimagine is not only people like Kevin Slattery and his ilk being absolutely wiped off of the face of any kind of authority and position to abuse Black people into infinity, but also people like Jason Molino and everybody else who thinks that there's always going to be a bigger issue than the violence against Black people, that always believes that there's a larger issue at play that we should pay attention to than the constant violence that Black people and people of color face every day under white supremacy. There's absolutely nothing more important than addressing the continued violence against Black bodies in this country, period.
Thank you. At the moment, no one else has their hand raised. We'll give us some time for individuals who'd like to speak, and I'll create a new list of speakers who will be up and then on deck. So if you are interested, and Zachary, I see you raising your hand. If others are interested, please feel free to raise your hand and I'll add you into the queue. All right, next up is Zachary.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a radical proposal, but please hear me out. I am suggesting that the city consider legalizing heroin. I know that federal drug laws would be an issue. I believe it would be possible to designate long-term opiate addiction as a medical condition and distribute heroin to addicts as medicine at cost. This would remove the economic motivator for crime to fund addiction, as well as robbing the drug dealers of revenue. The epidemic of break-ins, robberies, and violent crime here in Ithaca are not committed by people trying to feed their families or pay their rent. It is likely to fuel addiction. To be clear, I am suggesting the city itself become the drug dealer. This could function in a manner similar to a wet shelter where chronic alcoholics are given alcohol in a safe place to drink. Often these people will drink less or stop drinking altogether. A similar approach in Switzerland dramatically reduced property crime and stabilized the number of addicts. People addicted to opiates often find themselves forced to engage in drug trafficking to support their habits. I do feel compelled to point out that many of the same people who speak during these meetings are among the same group of people who have been staging violent roadblocks and acts of violence and intimidation all summer and fall. These people include Genevieve Rand, Ari Stubert, Rochelle Nishka, who just spoke, and Kate LaBeouf, among others. It would be wise at the conclusion of these forums to make it clear to the local radical community that their demands to defund the police will never come to pass, for the simple fact that people who do not want to send their kids to college in a town that is unsafe and ruled by the law of the jungle. To quote Honorable Judge Smales, I suggest you tell them that they will get nothing and like it. I yield the remainder of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Zachary. Next, we have Lincoln Alpern. Lincoln?
Yeah.
Hello? You're there,
Hi.
Lincoln. We can hear you.
You got it? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so I would just like to say that I have witnessed several of the protests the last person referred to, and I have not seen any violence except against the protesters a couple of times by the police. Violent arrests, I've seen the pepper spray video, and that is pretty much it. I've seen, you know, some angry back and forths between the protesters and motorists, but I have not seen any physical attacks whatsoever. And I think it is incredibly specious and dangerous to suggest otherwise and try to claim some kind of equivalence with the kind of actual violence that particularly Black and Indigenous and transgender and neurodivergent people have been facing, and that we have, the rest of us have been seeing more clearly, because it happens all the time this year. In terms of public safety, where's the funding for housing? Where's the funding for adequate healthcare? Where is the funding so that everybody who wants to work can work at a job that pays well enough for them to be able to afford a basic standard of living? That's public safety, not violent people in uniforms going around beating people up.
Thank you, Lincoln. Next, we have Monique. There are multiple people using this particular login. So if your name is different and you'd like me to state that, please let me know. But Monique, you're up. All right, I'm going to move on, Monique. If you're not planning to speak, we'll move on to Alex. For anyone else, please feel free to use the raised hand feature if you'd like to speak. Alex, I'm promoting new panelists. You have an older version of Zoom. You should be able to speak now. Are you there, Alex?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I would like to address what, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name, but what the person said about the person who spoke about protesters being violent, saying that the judge should not defund the police department, and they said something that was, people won't want to send their kids here if it's being, quote, ruled by the law of the jungle. And it was the point of the whole statement is not defund the police. It is defund the police and fund community programs, efforts to take down systemic barriers that are leading people to commit crimes, fund housing efforts, fund education, fund job programs, fund mental health services, fund healthcare. It is not just defund police. We take that money, we put it into things that actually matter and actually help the community. It's not like we are going to be, it's not like the police are stopping crime. They show up after crime happens and they don't do anything about it. And so it's, sorry, I'm not being very well spoken right now. I'm trying to collect my thoughts. Sorry. It's, that was just, assuming that a city with a defunded police department or with no police department will be ruled by the law of the jungle, like that person said, is just completely insane and asinine.
Thank you, Alex. Are there any other individuals who would like to lend their voice this evening? Please feel free to use the raised hand feature, and I will add you to the queue. I'll give it a couple of minutes for any individuals who'd like to use their raised hand feature. All right, next up we have Megan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just briefly wanted to note that that strategic waiting until those strong voices had already gone to speak after them and try to undermine them and call them violent was not unexpected, but those strong voices stand on their own, and I stand with them. One thing I wanted to bring up was kind of what Alex was talking about. The protests and the demands are not just about defunding the police, although we need to get rid of people like Kevin Slattery and all of the people who behave the same way within that system as soon as possible and get them off the streets so they can stop hurting people. We wouldn't let, there are so many other scenarios where we would never ever stand for those people to have a gun in their hand and walk around town freely. And yet we give them a paid vacation and everyone else who was involved is still out on the streets acting out their violence in the same ways. One thing I wanted to just bring up in a constructive way is that Rochester just recently decided to, after restructuring some of their victim services programs, they just recently decided to sign a contract with the Whitebird Clinic in Oregon, in Eugene, Oregon, and the folks from the Cahoots, which I always forget the acronym right when I need it, but it's a van that moves around the community. It's a mobile crisis unit, and Rochester is coordinating with them. They have a contract for $25,000 a year. I'd like to point out that's, I'm sure, less than Kevin Slattery's freaking salary. And the folks from Cahoots who have been doing this for decades in their community with great success at reducing police brutality and arrests and incarceration are going to train Rochester and help them get their own mobile crisis unit off the ground. I think Ithaca should follow suit.
Great, thank you, Megan. And someone put in the chat that Cahoots is crisis assistance helping out on the streets.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Other folks would like to speak this evening, please raise your hand. I will just add that the Cahoots program is something that has been brought up quite a few times and is something that many folks on the Reimagining Public Safety Working Groups have taken a look at, as well as the Camden model that's been referenced this evening. So thank you to many of the community members who've raised those different models of public safety. I'll give it a couple of minutes for folks. We have another. All right, Jack, you are up.
I can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. First off, I'm going to say defund the police, fund the community. Today, video service where an IPD officer bragged about brutalizing a black man. The video of Officer Slattery shows him bragging about beating up and brutalizing a person of color. This is not the first time we've seen proof of racist policing and culture at the Ithaca Police Department. Not too long ago, Deputy Chief Monticello, yes, we didn't forget about this incident, arrested a black man for quote-unquote obstruction after he had asked the officer for help, reporting that a white man had threatened him with a knife. When reported, Monticello responded with no, he didn't, and dismissed the comment. After that, he then arrested that black man for simply standing in a parking lot. Oh, let's also not forget that the officer asked the white man if he wanted him to arrest the black man, and then after that, proceeded to misgender a trans woman. This incident already was damning evidence of the racist policing that IPD engages in, but if it wasn't enough, we now have more video evidence of an IPD officer bragging about how he beat the shit out of someone. These are the people on the Ithaca Police Force, and these are two incidents that come out within the past 2 months. Now, Chief Mayor has said that this isn't reflective of IPD's culture, but the fact that this officer was comfortable saying these things to another officer shows that this is reflective of IPD's culture, a culture that is violent and unprofessional. Monticello's arrest of a black man for standing in a parking lot also shows IPD's culture. How much more evidence is needed? Let's get real. This isn't something that can be reformed. Reimagining public safety starts with affordable housing, free healthcare, and other social services that stops crime at the root cause. We need to keep our communities safe. So with people like Slattery and Monticello walking around, Ithacans do not feel safe with people like this brutalizing the community and proceeding to get away with it and having elected officials not speak out against it. So thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Jack. Next, we have Monique. And again, multiple people must have signed up through the same Zoom link. So if you have a different name you'd like me to present, please let me know before you begin speaking. Hello, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, hello, we can hear you.
Oh, my name isn't Monique. I didn't realize that was what popped up.
Oh, okay. Is there a name that you'd like me to use on the screen here?
Ray.
Okay.
And
Great.
I actually wanted to further discuss Slattery, to be completely honest. I'm actually at a lack of understanding why he is being allowed to lie as if he, didn't get caught on camera saying this stuff, and why that's not reprehensible and reflective of the entire department. And considering that whoever was with him when this happened, and he said don't, and I would love to know some further information on that officer, considering that is conspiracy to hurt an unarmed individual, which is completely illegal in every sense of the word. But I would like to know why this reprehensible action hasn't been actually taken into account, because why weren't the body cameras taken, period? Why have we not known about this information until right now? It is completely heinous that this is like coming out, 4 years later? And it's beyond me that there were multiple witnesses to this event and nobody released it until this year. It makes no sense. And ideologically, even reading this article right now as I'm looking at it and just trying to get a level of understanding, our whole system, including Savante, is completely reprehensible, and all of them need to be taken into accountability for this. That was horrible. Like, saying that this isn't a continuous issue, considering that Monticello just did the same thing and we're still trying to have this facade that the IPD that is in our area is for the people, is it's ridiculous. I cede my time.
Thank you, Ray. Are there other individuals on the Zoom this evening that would like to lend their voice? All right. Next, we have another individual using similar account. If you're Monique, let me know. Otherwise, let me know the name you'd like me to add to the screen.
My name is not Monique. It's Kai, K-Y-E.
K-Y-E. Okay, great. Welcome,
I don't know if
Kai.
any of you read the statements made by that officer, Kevin Slattery, but I would like to do that if not. On the recorded audio, he says, to his partner. I fucking pinned him against the wall. He was fighting with me. So I fucking suplexed him into the ground. Then I'm on top of him and he's still not giving up. So I'm giving him knee strikes. I fucking knee strike him in the neck. Fucking struck him in the fucking back. Later, he says, look, dude, you're going to the car. You can either go to the car with us or you can, be dragged to the car. He continues and said, the suspect said, I ain't giving up. So he grabbed one of his feet and his partner grabbed the other. And they bounced him all the fucking way down the stairs. And I'd just like to quickly read Savante's response to this. Oh, gosh, sorry. Give me a sec. I'm keenly aware that this comes at an already strained moment in IPD's relationship with the public, Myrick said. I continue to believe that IPD as an organization is one of the most professional police departments in the state. But there's clearly room for improvement, and we will continue the hard work of building and maintaining a culture of respect and professionalism throughout the department. I would argue that there's clearly never been that, considering how many people have horror stories of the police, especially when they call them for help, especially in targeted communities. I think it's pretty clear that IPD has no right to be here. The way they treat the community is fucked. Let's get rid of them.
Thank you, Kai. Next up is Logan. Hey, Logan. Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So, in regards to defunding the police, I do believe that very serious change is needed, and a sizable portion of the funds for the police should be reallocated somewhere more preventionary in ideal to prevent crime instead of react to it. However, that being said, I do still believe that we need something for the follow-up to a crime, because there is no 100% prevention system that we can make. It's not feasible and it's not really possible. So given that, while we need to reallocate their funds, the police do still need to exist in some form to combat what does happen, regardless of how much we try to prevent. On a similar note, we can't judge I feel it's inappropriate to judge the entirety of the police department based on the actions of the bad bunch, so to speak, because we don't hear about the good cops as much, because they're the ones who do their job right and we don't have to worry about it. And I can see your emotes in the chat. I'd appreciate you not making fun of me. Moving on from that, though, I don't really believe that we need to completely eradicate the system of policing. Something needs to be done. That is not true. There are good cops. We don't hear about them simply because there's no reason for us to look at them. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Logan. All right, if there's anyone else who'd like to speak this evening, please use the raised hand feature and we will elevate you to speak. And I'll keep a list of those who are interested. We'll give it a minute or so, a couple minutes more for any individuals who would like to speak this evening. Thank you again to all of those who have turned out tonight. It's one of our largest groups so far for these Community Voices public forums. And again, we will be hosting another tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. as well, which will be the last in this particular series. And we'll be announcing future community engagement opportunities early next week as well, and send that to all of the individuals who've been engaged so far. All right, I have another individual, a few folks that are using the same name and account. I'll let you, and this is, could you let me know your name to put on the screen?
Yeah, my name is Shannon.
Shannon. Okay, great. Welcome, Shannon. We can hear you.
So one thing that this situation with Officer Slattery that people aren't taking into consideration is that when an officer of the law screws up, harms somebody, makes a boo-boo, every single case that they have ever been involved in goes under investigation. So for all of the people that are on here saying, you know, there are good cops, well, the problem is that even if you're a good cop and you make a boo-boo and, oh, we need police, that then makes it so that people that actively are harming people in the city may actually be able to just go out and harm people in the city because their cases get overturned. So this is more of an informational thing, and it kind of irritates me that people don't realize these things. When talking about reimagining public safety, holding officers accountable to the same laws and standards that civilians are expected to live by, I think is like at the top of that. And the fact of the matter is law enforcement in general psychologically isn't wired to hold themselves to that accountability. And the law enforcement system is not meant to be held accountable to the citizens. They're accountable to themselves. So I think definitely having a community related like peer review of how law enforcement conducts themselves, removing all veteran officers because their bias training does not apply when they've been doing the same thing for 10 to 20 years. Obviously implementing new systems that include access to proper mental health care and housing and, you know, all of the social systems that everybody has already mentioned. The Kahoot system is great. The LEAD program is awesome, except for the part where law enforcement is still the first people on the scene for the LEAD program. I'll stop.
Thank you, Shannon. For the next individual, another similar name account issue. Could you share with me the name you'd like me to use on the screen?
My name is Wallace.
Wallace, great.
This is directed specifically at Zach Winn. I don't know how you can talk about the violent protests when you are the aggressor for so many incidents. You literally came up and punched me in the face for no reason at a protest. So I just don't want to hear you or any of your like cronies talking about peace or whatever, you know. That's all.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter. Goodbye.
Thank you. Wallace? Are there any other individuals who would like to speak this evening? Okay, we have another. Claire, just use, there you are, use the raise hand feature if you'd like to speak. Next is Claire.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wow, it took me like a half an hour to get. Thanks for all those who have been speaking, and I just want to acknowledge the incredible collective work by, I'm guessing, many young people to support each other and protect Black and Brown people, and not just by way of policing, but especially with policing. I am noticing as I've been looking at this website that it was by executive order that Cuomo ordered that municipalities have these conversations. And I appreciate the speakers who have kind of pushed it outside the box, that it's not just about good cop, bad cop, and that we need to reframe this whole thing. So in that same spirit, I would like to say, if we really want to fight crime, we should start with the big ones of killing millions and stealing trillions. And that's just something that I have arrived at after many years of holding myself accountable of a person privileged by this system that kills with impunity, calls it normal, but it's nothing but murder, and steals globally and locally in the pursuit of profit-making economies. So I find it hard to legitimize basically the policing of bodies here, as people have been talking about, but as anything but further criminalization. And I want to bring in the people in prison, and releasing aging people in prison is a huge need right now. It's nothing but criminal to have people in prison during COVID.
Thank you, Claire. If there are other individuals who would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature. I'll give it about a minute or so for anyone who would like to lend their voice. We're still collecting input through surveys and other ways. We have kiosks available at the library, paper surveys, a number for voicemails, and an online ongoing survey with a similar question that's being posed here. We'll put that link in the chat. It's in the YouTube chat, but we'll also put it in the Zoom chat for those of you who haven't seen it. Thank you, Deanna. We'll give it another minute or so if there are any other individuals who'd like to raise their hand and lend their voice this evening. To the person I just elevated, if you let me know the name you'd like to use, it's another one of the account naming issues.
I just have one thing to say to Zach Winn. Why you so obsessed with me? I yield my time.
Thank you. Again, we're encouraging folks to only speak once per forum, and there are many folks who have a similar name on here, so thanks for your patience as we work to make sure that folks are lending their voices accordingly. Are there any other individuals who'd like to speak this evening? Please use the raised hand feature. And if the name that you have on your account is incorrect, you can also use the rename feature to use your preferred name. All right. I'd also like to remind individuals that we're trying to keep the chat a productive space as well. Thank you for all of those who lended their voice this evening. We'll give it another 30 seconds or so for any individuals who would like to speak this evening. Well, thank you everyone for coming out tonight, lending your voice to this process. The City of Ithaca and Tompkins County will continue to update the community on the process for reimagining public safety, and we'll put out some messages early next week with the next set of community engagement opportunities. So again, thank you everyone for tuning in tonight, and thank you to all of those who shared these opportunities with your networks, and to those of you who've tuned in on YouTube as well. Again, we'll hold another, the final in the series of Community Voices forums tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. The link to that Zoom is also available at the link that's both in the chats in YouTube and in Zoom. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.